Well, hi, team. Ryan Walter here, and it's awesome to be with you. And the guy over there has got a little more dark hair than this guy. Funny how that happens in life, right? But let's sort of dive in, and you guys have been highly successful over these years. Let's look at winning every day. Let's look at some principles that maybe will just tweak our day and tweak the way that we do things so that we can continue to have success and we can, push forward to get that next Stanley Cup. You win the first one, you want to win the second one. And we're going to talk through that today. So the concept of mindset's powerful, isn't it? I really learned that, in the early days, certainly with the Washington Capitals. I'll share that story. But the Montreal Canadiens, I was traded there in 1982. And 82 through 91, we had some real good success. And I had to learn, right? I had to learn some concepts. Would you agree that most of success is a learning curve? So I had to learn some things. I'll give you a couple examples of the things that I had to learn. Number one is that when I came to Montreal, it was a much different mindset. Right? It was a different sort of thing that we focused on. And let me give you the example. So in 86, in the 23rd of May, 1986, we win that Stanley Cup. But what you probably don't know is that same team about 100 days earlier, middle of February, that same season, was on the edge of dysfunction. Think about that. Exact same team. We never made a trade. We didn't fire management. Aren't you happy with me? Right? We didn't get rid of the coaches. And we went from struggling to winning the ultimate championship. So really, the question that we love to ask each other as high performers is what changed? What changed? And when you look at it, same personnel, right? Same system, same structure, same leaders. What changed? Well, you can guess, our mindset changed. We went from, poor me, navel gazing. I can't believe that guy said that about me, right? In that mode where these two guys didn't like those two guys. And we got our eyes fixed on a better goal and we got moving towards it. We gained some momentum, some little successes, and we got it. We ended up with that Stanley Cup. We're so thankful. So the concept of mindset's powerful. Hey, I really learned this with the Washington Capitals. So I was drafted there as a young player in 1978. That feels like a long time ago. The Capitals struggled to win. And so here's what I learned is that the Caps really had a mindset. We were trying to get out of it. But if we couldn't win a game, we had to look around a bit and find someone to blame. It's true, isn't it? After a while, if you lose a lot, you got to blame somebody because it's hard to take it all on yourself. So we used to point at the referee, right? Blame the referee. If we couldn't blame the referee for the loss, we would blame our goaltender. Goaltenders are always great to blame, right? That was a huge shift that we had to get out of. And during my 4 years with the Capitals, we were working to change that mindset. So then I got traded to these guys in 1982, the Montreal Canadiens. And the mindset in that dressing room, because it was a highly successful dressing room, that team had just come off 6 Stanley Cup wins in 10 seasons. Let me take you inside that dressing room. That dressing room was much more built on accountability and this idea of no excuses. Just find a way to win. Don't you love that thought? Just find a way to win. And we weren't perfect. We messed up a lot, but we had a philosophy I'm going to talk about. We had a mindset that was really focused, right, on getting the win. Here's what I learned at the NHL level. Maybe you learned this in business and sales and leadership. is it playing in the NHL is one thing, right? Like, it's not easy to play in the NHL. I'm not saying it's easy, but playing in the NHL is sort of one echelon, and then there's a next step, and the next step is learning how to win at the NHL level. Isn't that interesting? Those two things are different. It's a little bit like, in business, we come to work or we come to win. What's the gap? Well, often, would we agree, it's mindset. So I learned some of these things. Bobby Smith, who's in behind me there, and I'm on the left there, Bobby's on the right, and the guy in the middle is obviously Guy Lafleur, and he had an incredible mindset. Do you know Guy was on the ice 30 minutes before any other player for every practice? What was his mindset? Think about this. What was his philosophy? We're going to talk about that, right? It was to get better. Here's the best player in the league at one point, right? That can't wait to get better. Love that concept. Then I got to Vancouver and I learned about mindset in a different way. Very much with the Canucks, it was a mindset of teach me how to win. This was a very talented team, but they wanted to understand that concept of winning. So I ended up finishing my career in Vancouver. So thankful. Jen and I grew our kids right there in Langley, British Columbia, down in White Rock for a little bit, and then Langley for a long time. And by the way, now Jenny and I have just purchased a place over in Comox, and we just love it. We're right on the water. We're so thankful. So mindset is interesting. And by the way, in a future opportunity together, training opportunity, we've actually built a 6 mindset model. And we'd love to share that with you down the road, because it's a powerful, powerful way to actually create awareness and shift your thinking. But let's just go here quickly. Would we agree that mindset is not easy to see or not easy to be aware of? It's here, it's in here. But would you agree that what comes out? Language. What we hear is powerful, isn't it? And language defines reality. Language creates reality. So I really want you to listen in as you think about language connecting to mindset. If you're talking to somebody once and they're speaking, in your brain maybe go, wow, I wonder what this client's mindset is. Right? You can try to analyze them. Yeah. Now, this is an interesting thought. When I was traded with Rick Green to the Montreal Canadiens, 4 Montreal Canadiens went the other way. Ingblom, Jarvis, Lachlan, and Rod Langway. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, those words were the headline in the Montreal Gazette when Rick and I landed in Dorval Airport for that first training camp. Worst trade in NHL history. Wow. Would we agree language creates reality? Words count. Do you know, for the next month, I actually completely underperformed. And I had 38 goals in my 4th season with the Washington Capitals. That's why they traded for me. How could that happen? How could a few words internalized? Let me ask you the question, though, because I think this is humanity. Have you ever lived somebody else's headline for your life? Right? Words count. So this concept of words and mindset, let's just sort of nail it, and then we're going to move into philosophy, and then we'll touch on focus, okay? So the concept is an interesting one. There's a couple of tightrope walkers in the 70s. There was Carl Wallenda and Philip Petit. They were both brilliant. Philip Petit actually walked across the Twin Towers back when we had them. And the day before he walked, he said this: "It's impossible, sure, so let's start working on it. You want something, nothing's impossible." You sort of feel the mindset that Philip Petit took on. Powerful. And when you think about it, he just walked across and he actually walked back, which is crazy, on the 7th of August, 1974. Now, I don't know if you remember this, Some of us old timers remember. Carl Walenda actually fell to his death in Puerto Rico. He fell off the rope. And we found an article where Mrs. Walenda, his wife, was quoted in the newspaper after Carl fell. Let me read it to you. All Carl thought about for 3 months prior to it was falling. It was the first time he'd ever thought about it. And it seemed to me that he put all of his energies into not falling rather than walking the tightrope. How many times in our lives, in sports and in business, is our mindset in that mode where we're playing to not win? We're playing to not lose. Fascinating. So this idea of mindset's powerful. Let's move, because I love this concept too. Philosophy. So really the question that we want to touch on is, what is our philosophy? Now, when you think about philosophy, right, it's sort of that idea that, it's what we believe about ourselves and our world. It's the things that really impact who we are and who we become. Patrick Waugh. Now, if you're not a hockey fan, no problem. Go back and Google Patrick Waugh. Pretty good goalie. So Patty Waugh did this. And I've never seen a goalie at the NHL level and minor hockey anywhere do this. Patrick Waugh would come on the ice for practice and he'd get in the net. And other goalies, they're just warming up. So if you put a puck by them, they didn't care, right? And by the time the warm-up was finished, they'd have 20 pucks in their net. Not Patrick. If he was in net, right, and a puck goes through, he would turn around, get the puck out of the net, and reset for the next shot. Think about that. What was Patrick's philosophy? No pucks in the net. Isn't that cool? You wonder why he was one of the greatest, right? It certainly wasn't his physique. He wasn't the biggest. He was a skinny goalie, actually. Right? He had a determination. He had a will that was built out of a philosophy. No pucks in the net. Isn't that cool? Love that thought. Let me ask you the question a couple times. What is your philosophy? What differentiates you in the marketplace? What do you do that nobody else does? I've never seen another goalie ever do that. Turn around, get a puck out and reset, right? Never seen a goalie do that. You think of Tom Brady. What's his philosophy? Well, there's some articles that are coming out now about Brady in New England. Obviously, Tom Brady was the top paid player with New England for all those years, right? He was a quarterback. He made the top salary and he took it. But here's what he did, and I didn't know this. Then he took his salary and then he gave back 40% to the team. And he said, here's what I want you to do with that 40%. I want you to spend on linemen, the first grade lineman, the second grade lineman. I want you to spend on linemen because I need extra time. Put your money there. Take my salary and spend it on that important place. Imagine that. So what was Tom Brady's philosophy? I mean, he's the only quarterback that's won all these Super Bowls. What's his philosophy, right? Seconds create Super Bowls. When he gets an extra second, right, he can make the play. And he can't do that if they don't have the right people in front of him blocking. Isn't that cool? What is his philosophy? Love this guy. So I don't know if you know Viktor Frankl. Great story. Google him. A brilliant, brilliant doctor, right? And he said this, and this has really impacted my life. Between stimulus and response is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. What is the philosophy that Viktor Frankl wants us to think about as leaders, as high performers, right? It's this simple concept that when we get stimulus in our life, do we have a space? Can we grow our space before we respond? Whoa, that is a powerful thought. I really believe, leaders, that in 2021, 2022, that growing our space between stimulus and response is one of the most powerful leadership skills that we'll be able to work on. Love that idea. What is his philosophy, right? You can see it right there, right? Growth, not reacting, being smart, giving ourselves a chance to have growth and freedom. And then, of course, you got to look at MJ, right? Don't you love this thought? Why would I ever think about missing a shot that I haven't taken yet? That's so good. And yet so many of us live life by thinking about, I could never do that. Mine will never go in. I'm not going to get that sale. One more time, Michael Jordan. Why would I ever think about missing a shot that I haven't taken yet? Not good. What was his philosophy, right? Mental toughness, focus, complete, right? Make it happen. It's going in. I'm not thinking about it not going in, not making the sale, right? Not leading a championship team. So that idea is powerful. So, you think of a couple of things in success. Number one, right? We think about this idea of mindset. We'll go deeper into that. That's a powerful place. And then number two, we look at philosophy. So let me say it one more time. What is your philosophy, right? What defines you now? And what will define what we're going to call your future self? What do you want to grow into, okay? And how is that connected to your philosophy? Finally, and this is going by real quick, and we planned it this way. By the way, we've got some question time coming. I'm really looking forward to that. So start to get your questions ready. Any question goes. It can be hockey, it can be high performance. Maybe it's leadership. Maybe it's just family. Any question, that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. So the third thought that we wanted to just lay out in front of you as you continue to have high performance and high success is this idea of focus. It's everything, isn't it? Isn't it powerful? I think of this construct. There's a movie, I don't know if you've seen The Art of Racing in the Rain. Great movie. It's actually about a golden retriever more than a car driver. But it's a great movie. And apparently, and I didn't know this, but when they're teaching young drivers, high performance drivers, if you turn the corner and you look ahead and you see an accident right there, apparently the first move is not with your hands. That's interesting. Apparently the first move is with your eyes and your hands follow. That's interesting. The car goes where the eyes go. And leaders, isn't that a powerful, powerful thought for 2022, right? Finish off 2021 strong. What are we looking at? Are we fixated on a pandemic and everything that it has taken from me? I don't know. On real estate, we just bought real estate. It seems to keep going up. Or are we fixated on everything that other people do wrong? Or do we see their best? Do we choose to look for their best? That is a powerful thought, and I join you in that thought, okay? So my wife Jenny and I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We were in Cleveland, Ohio, because our son Ben was playing in the American Hockey League there. So we went to, of course, you got to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we're big Bruce Springsteen fans. That tells you how old we are. He's got to be like 90 now. I don't know what he is. Anyway, so my wife Jen's a huge Springsteen fan. She's there like 2 hours. I'm an okay Springsteen fan. So I get my 40 minutes and I'm happy. And so I say, okay, honey, have fun. And I go down and I get a coffee. I'm going to do some email. So I'm just checking out my coffee. There's a guy about 35 years old behind the counter, and he's going to take my $5 and give me some change, okay? I don't know, do you guys always put your foot in your mouth like I do? Oh boy. I looked at him and I was pretty jacked up. I said, you know what, like this is a crazy, amazing place. Like the best of the best are here at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You get to work here. Like, what's your favorite part of this exhibit? And without pausing, he said, the exit sign. Right? What was he focused on? Leaving. Wow. Focus is everything. By the way, right down that escalator is where I got my coffee. Great spot. There's a brilliant book out by David Gray called Liminal Thinking. Simple read, but really powerful. And he in that book, he tells a story. And you know it's not true, but it's a great story. A king in a kingdom many years ago. King brings all the blind people of his kingdom in, and he lines them up on one wall of a large room. And then he just brings in quietly an elephant, and he puts the elephant down on the far wall. And he turns to the blind people and he says, ladies and gentlemen, I honor you. I've always wanted to understand how blind people experience life. Could you go down, walk across the room and just experience what's down there, and then come on back, because I'd like to understand, how you experience life. Well, as you can imagine, some of the blind people went down, they experienced the trunk. Ooh, slimy, yucky, I don't know what that is. Some would touch the side of the elephant, right? That's hard, it's like a wall. Others, it might be a pillar. It felt like a pillar because it was a big leg. And maybe, others grabbed the tail. It felt like a rope. So all of the blind people get back to the king and they're arguing. That wasn't a rope, it felt like a pillar. And David Gray, after sharing that story, nails me in his book when he says this: we are all blind. Wow, powerful thought. You see, isn't it true that we all experienced life through a very different frame? We actually experience reality differently. That elephant was reality, but it was only when somebody touched the leg and it was a pillar, that was only part of the reality. None of us can see all of our reality as we go through life. And so here's what we want to challenge you around is can we go through life looking through other people's frames by asking brilliant questions? Really being curious about how they see life and not how we're trying to jam that client into our frame. Wow, that's a powerful thought. So I want to give you, as we finish up, I want to give you what I love. This is a value acronym. Grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, and I'm gonna walk you through this. Now, Matt Logan is a 30-year RCMP veteran, wonderful friend of mine. And he actually was my prof. He started off as my professor when I did the master's degree in leadership business at Trinity. And Matt taught us this idea, this concept, because do you know what Matt did for a chunk of his career? He talked people off the Lions Gate Bridge. When people went to commit suicide on the bridge, they would bring in Matt. He had a degree, a doctorate in psychology. I said to Matt, Matt, you're teaching us some stuff here. What's in your mind? What's in your mindset? What is your sort of, philosophy when you go and you look at this person up on the bridge? What's your focus? And Matt said, let me share it with you, Ryan. I call it value, and it's in my mind when I'm talking to those people. So write this down, okay? So there's your acronym. The V is to validate the relationship. That's a powerful first start, isn't it? Do you know what I often do, leaders? I just give information. Get off the bridge. Whoops, that didn't work. Right? I often just go to process or solve the problem. But what Matt would counsel us to do is to pause and to validate the person. Always start with people. And I got to say, and I say this carefully, my wife Jenny is my best friend. We're 40 years married next June. And you can't go 40 years without having some bumps, right? We're real. But this has really helped me. When I remember and I start with Jen, instead of starting with solving the problem, right? When I check in with her and her feelings first, I validate the relationship. Of course, the A is to ask brilliant questions. And this is an area that I am so passionate about, and I'm collecting great questions. And I'd love to collect questions with you. Sales is about questions, right? We need information to understand every part of our client relationship. Ask brilliant questions. The L is to really hear, really listen. You know, David Rock is a guy that I love to read, and he said this: listen for potential. One more time, listen for potential. Not a good thought? Love that idea. The U is to understand the other person's point of view before you ask them to understand yours. Oh, that's a tough one. And the E is to empower action. At the end of the day, we need to take some action. We need to move forward. We've got to, move in a direction together. Okay. So that idea of the value acronym, I want you to use it this week. I want you to use it next week. Actually write it down, put it on your desk, put it in your car, and just think about, where this works really well, as you can imagine, is especially when you're in maybe a conflicted situation, right? Don't start with problem. Don't start with process. Start with people. Ask great questions. Really listen in. That's the hard part for me. Understand their point of view before you ask them to understand yours, and empower action. Let's get to some sort of move forward opportunity. Now, I've sort of structured it this way. I believe that listening to answer, so when I'm listening to give an answer, I believe that's called mentoring. That's how we look at this, because we do a lot of stuff around coaching, leadership and coaching. But I believe when I'm listening to ask, I'm in the coaching mode. I'd love you to practice that this week. Am I listening to answer? Now that's important. Don't stop doing that. You've got the information. People want it. But when you're in a coaching situation, or your mindset goes, ooh, this is a good time to coach, I want to be in a listening to ask mode. So I'm listening, I'm going to ask the next question. I'm listening, I'm going to ask the next question. And we're going to get into it later in some of our training. We're going to call that metacognition. Now there's a big word for a hockey player. So lots of fun there. Have some fun with that. Let me share a story to finish. This man is Abe Poland, and Abe was the owner of the Washington Capitals when I was drafted there. Abe and I became friends, very good friends. Abe's passed now. But Abe Poland is one of those guys that was just a powerful guy, and owned the Washington Capitals, owned the building, owned the Bullets, which was at the time the basketball team. I got traded to Montreal. Have you ever done this in life? And about 15 years went by. I never even thought about it. All of a sudden, my tummy says, call Abe. Do you ever have that happen? Sure you have. So I called Abe. He said, Ryan, why did you call today? I said, I have no idea. Abe, my tummy said, call Abe. He said, well, tonight, Ryan, I'm winning the Entrepreneur of the Year award for Washington, D.C. I'm going, Abe, congratulations. Like, wow, you're going to receive a trophy or a plaque, so you're probably going to give a speech. He said, yeah, I will. I said, hey, what are you going to talk about? I love writing those notes down. I love saving them. He said, Ryan, I'm going to tell one story and sit down. I said, Abe, I'm salivated. Got to give me the story. He said, Ryan, you don't know this, but when I was 16 years old, I had two best friends, and all three of us had one specific focus. He said, we were going to make the basketball team at high school. He said, all summer we shot baskets, we lifted weights, we ran, we were in great shape. He said, we were on track to make that team. He said, until 2 days before tryouts. He said, 2 days before tryouts, I chickened out. 2 days before tryouts, I chickened out. Abe said, you know, that fall, Ryan, I stood in the stands and I watched my two best friends not only make a team, but win a championship. He said, that fall, I stood in the stands, I watched other people do what I should be doing. He said, that fall, I stood in the stands and I swore to myself, I would never chicken out of life again. If I was supposed to do it, I'd get it done. Abe died a billionaire. Not the money's everything, right? But you know what I'm most proud of when I think of Abe Pollin? Abe chose to shift.
6 p.m.
Abe chose to take that next step, right? Abe chose to not look for the rest of his life at all the mistakes he made, but to look forward and move in a direction with a mindset that would allow him to have success every single day. See you soon, team, and get your questions ready. Thanks so much.